I grew up literally around the definition of hustle. My senior year of high school, we were doing a lot of racing, ended up breaking a lot of bones. And it was just kind of like, break a bone, recover 6 months later, another major injury. And I just got so tired, burnt out. And that was one of the coolest things and like lessons with my family is like they let me fail.
Awesome.
But they also were there to help me whenever I did fail to know like, hey, you're not alone. And that was like right as I was getting ready to graduate high school. And then I opened up my own business, got into the firework business at 17 and then turned around and basically dumped all of my savings into that. Opened up Murff Racing, which was a diesel performance shop. Okay. Started doing that.
And how old were you when you opened the shop?
18. But I also always admired like seeing military people and just kind of the sense of service. And then also the appreciation that my family had for people who did serve in the military. My parents were always the people who kind of stopped, thanked them for their service, and made it something known for my sister and myself, like, hey, these people are the reason why we're able to do what we're doing. Growing up, like, I feel like our generation got all the cool stuff. Like, we got Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan. We had all these amazing movies that impacted so many of us to join, and that was one of the things that, like, watching those, it's like, dude, like I want to go and do this. Like I want to experience the brotherhood and the camaraderie that these guys are able to portray just through a movie or a show. But I want to experience that in person. And that's what kind of guided me towards the Army, going into the infantry, and then, eventually wanting to go into Ranger Battalion.
So let me get this straight. 14-ish, you're racing motocross.
Yep.
And the same era you learned how to disassemble and rebuild a 4-stroke quad. Then you got into a diesel shop. You got into metal fab. Then you got into 3D CAD. Then you got a job at another shop that you're there. Then you owned a business, and that was all before you graduated high school.
Yeah.
Holy Welcome to The Lasting Mission, a podcast dedicated to sharing the powerful stories and experiences of veterans, their families, and supporters. Presented by Mission Roll Call, a nonpartisan movement providing veterans with a powerful, unified voice that is heard by our nation's leaders and communities. For information, visit missionrollcall.org. Welcome to the Lasting Mission podcast presented by Mission Roll Call. I'm Nate Kinney. I will be our host today. And first, I want to start by thanking each and every one of you who have clicked, subscribed, downloaded, followed, or reposted any of the Lasting Mission podcasts or any Mission Roll Call content. Those supporters are so imperative to what we are doing our best to do for veterans who deserve it so much. So thank you for that support. And with us today, I also want to thank Jason Murff, a 3.5-year Army veteran, an entrepreneur, a small business owner with a blossoming boutique barbecue rub company. I won't talk too much about his company because I'm just learning about it and its incredible products. But Jason, thank you for coming all the way down from Salado here to Austin, Texas. Welcome to the Lasting Mission.
I appreciate it. It's a honor to be on.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate you. So let's start. Tell me a little bit about your time in the Army. Specifically, what inspired you to join the military? And what roles did you serve in your time in the military?
So, I mean, going back to like what inspired me to be in the military is growing up as a kid, both my parents were entrepreneurs. They were gone all the time. They invested into a very small business whenever I was 1 year old, whenever they finally pulled the trigger, moved from Beaumont, Texas, where I was born, to Houston, Texas. And they were just 100% on the go. My dad used to make the commute from Beaumont to Houston all the time.
What's that commute look like?
Like 2 hours.
A 2-hour commute.
Yeah.
On him.
So they were, I grew up literally around the definition of hustle. Okay. And just grind. So I always admired that, but I also always admired like seeing military people, and just kind of the sense of service. And then also the appreciation that my family had for people who did serve in the military. My parents were always the people who kind of stopped, thanked them for their service, and made it something known for my sister and myself, like, hey, these people are the reason why we're able to do what we're doing. So I always had a huge respect for that. And then growing up, like, I feel like our generation got all the cool stuff. Like, we got Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan. We had all these amazing movies that impacted so many of us to join. And that was one of the things that, like, watching those, it's like, dude, like, I want to go and do this. Like, I want to experience the brotherhood and the camaraderie that these guys are able to portray just through a movie or a show. But I want to experience that in person. And that's what kind of guided me towards the Army. going into the infantry, and then, eventually wanting to go into Ranger Battalion for that. So those were really my driving factors.
So right out of high school, straight to the military?
No. So probably middle school, Jason, you would have talked to him. That's exactly what I was going to do. Okay. And then we all have like crazy life-changing moments. It's very, I don't even know the word to say. Our life changes so drastically throughout that. We see a shiny object and chase it. Or at least that's how it was for me. So
yeah, the contrast of your focus is very much squirrel.
Yeah, it still is today. That hasn't changed at all. They call it ADHD. I think it's just
me and you both. This might be a really long podcast.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has ADHD to a degree, I feel,
sure.
And you can use it as an ability. So I did it to mine. Like I said, middle school me probably directly into the military, just rock on. But instead, I figured out with my parents owning that store, I basically grew up inside of their hardware store. And I learned every aspect that I didn't want to do for a living. Like my dad would make me put a new roof on the store. He would make me build fences for the store. He would make me pour concrete for the store. So I learned all of these amazing life goals, but I'm like, cool, I don't want to be a roofer. I don't want to be a concrate guy. I don't want to do floor. I don't want to lay tile floors.
You started with what you didn't want to do.
Yeah.
But, hey, it's a great way to go.
I started learning you don't have to work for someone. You can do things yourself. So I fell in love with racing motocross. Did that for a long time. Still do that today.
I didn't know that. I used to race motocross.
That's awesome.
I'm into motorcycles. That's cool. Anybody in Mission Roll Call right now that's hearing this podcast is like, Nate, this isn't about you and all your motorcycles, because I talk about it all the time. So I didn't know. That's a great fact. I didn't realize it. Yeah,
I started off on a dirt bike, then started racing motocross on quads, and then now back on dirt bikes. But I had that as a huge pivotal moment of my life, and it kind of taught me a lot of discipline that I didn't learn from the household.
Okay.
Just if you want to actually be professional, if you want to be competitive, you have to be disciplined. And
racing's a business, and it's expensive,
100%.
And you have substantial debt, and you have to win your purse. I mean, that's a great intro. How old were you when you started doing motocross?
14.
Okay.
So started doing that. I was riding, playing around. We grew up with a creek behind our neighborhood. So cool. Me and all the hoodlums in our neighborhood, we'd go ride back in the creek and then run from the cops back there and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we grew up doing that. And then that led into me kind of falling in love with welding, fabricating. And then as well, I went down the route in high school. I ended up meeting a drafting teacher because they basically told me hey, you have to take a computer class. And I'm like, okay, cool. We learn how to type on a keyboard, or I could do 3D CAD engineering.
Yeah.
I was like, that's dope because I could design what I'm going to fabricate with my hands. So I went down that route. In my senior year of high school, we were doing a lot of racing. Ended up breaking a lot of bones. And it was just kind of break a bone, recover. 6 months later, another major injury. And I just got so tired, burnt out on breaking bones.
Yeah. And then having to watch everything go around, without you while you're recovering.
And then you just you're 110% coming back to try and recover and build back. And as soon as you build back, it's just that step back. It was that and women. I kind of, pumped the brakes on that kind of racing. And then I started seeing the aspects of drag racing diesel trucks.
Okay.
I started working at a diesel shop. One of the friends I went to high school with, her dad owned a diesel shop, and I just kind of went over there one day, helped him pull out a motor out of a truck and put the motor back in. And he was like, hey, you want a job? I was like, cool. I mean, I'm 16. I've been working at my parents' hardware store and doing other little stuff here and there. Yeah, let's change it up. So
at 16. Were you more the mechanical side, or were you more metal fab side at that point?
I was at that time more metal fab. And I didn't have a ton. The only mechanical knowledge I had was my dad came home one day and I had fully taken apart my racing quad. Yeah. And I had no idea how to put it back together.
Was it a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke?
It was a 4-stroke.
Okay. Yeah.
So even more complicated.
Like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And this is not a diesel and it's not a 2-stroke. What are you doing?
He was just like, and this was before I even knew anything about diesels.
This was around 16, you said?
No, this was back 14.
So your dad comes home and as a business owner who's watching his pennies, and his son who races has taken apart his entire
just
quad.
Shit is spread everywhere in the garage. And he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you took it apart. You got to put it back together.
Yeah.
And then he helped me. And that was one of the coolest things and lessons with my family is they let me fail.
Awesome.
But they also were there to help me whenever I did fail, to know like, hey, you're not alone. So yeah, it was more fabrication side. Then I learned the mechanical side of it, and then I got to learn like kind of the engineering side with the 3D CAD. So I did that. Went and worked at a diesel shop for a while. Ended up going into the oil field as I was kind of coming out of high school.
Not a lot of people come back from that because there's just so much money right off the bat, especially for a young kid. You come out, you get the check.
Some days I smack myself.
Well, we'll talk about your business later. You're doing just fine. He's doing just fine right now. But yeah, I can imagine back in the day going from getting, crap your pants money as a young man to then going into the military. You started in infantry, right?
It was like minimum wage working for my parents. And then, because a lot of times I was working for my parents, I was underage. I wasn't supposed to be working there. And then fast forward.
Your allowance, non-taxable,
It's for taking out the trash.
Right.
Then I go to this diesel shop, and it's a small shop, so he can't afford to pay me, really anything. So again, doing that, and then all of a sudden I get hired on, and it's funny, this machine shop, they did MWD, so they needed a 3D CAD engineer to help design all these parts, and they put me in a closet. That was my first office at this machine shop. It's like, okay, cool. They put me in a closet.
The computer boy, go over there. Yeah, so those guys are old school,
I did that probably for 6 months, and that was like right as I was getting ready to graduate high school, and then I opened up my own business. And so that was a fireworks stand that my dad had actually repossessed and then turned around and gave me a deal. And he was like, hey, do you want to buy a fireworks stand? I'm like, what are you talking about? You just got this shit for free. And he was like, yeah, I'm not going to give it to you for free. Do you want to buy it? And
awesome
I was just
lesson.
like,
awesome lesson.
Okay, cool. So I sat on it, and then my childhood best friend Jordan ended up getting a pretty bad accident, ended up on house arrest, and we realized, hey, at 17, like, I can sign your PO papers if I have a business. And like, my dad had just hit me with that deal, and I was like, oh, man, this is kind of like perfectly lined up. So I was like, fuck it. So got into the firework business at 17, and then turned around and basically dumped all of my savings into that. Barely broke even. And I was like, okay, cool, but we can make a lot of money with that. So did the oil field again.
High profit margin, yeah.
And then the second round of the fireworks, I was like, you know what? I can start doing like all of this stuff, but better than what I was doing at the other diesel shop. So I was like, let me give this a shot. So at that time, I was graduating high school, opened up Murff Racing, which was a diesel performance shop. Okay. Started doing that. Well,
how old were you when you opened the shop?
18.
So let me get this straight. 14-ish, you're racing motocross.
Yep.
And the same era, you learned how to disassemble and rebuild a 4-stroke quad. Then you got into a diesel shop. You got into metal fab. Then you got into 3D CAD. Then you got a job at another shop that you're there. Then you owned a business, and that was all before you graduated high school.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah, it's ADHD.
Yeah.
Let me go try this shit. All right, I'm bored. Let's go to this one.
Well, also dedication and hard work.
Yeah, and I have no other bone in my body but that, especially growing up around my parents. So I'm unbelievably grateful for that kind of childhood and upbringing. But yeah, no, I started figuring out like, hey, these are how these diesels run on their computers, and we can reprogram them for the fuel mapping and the timing and everything like that. And, okay, hey, this is what turbo system is on the 7.3 Power Stroke. Okay, why don't we redesign it this way, and then we can fit larger turbos on it, and we can do this. So, and then that ended up, I had met a guy from motocross racing to where he turned around and showed me like, hey, we can take this like turbo kit that you just built for your truck, and if you pull it off and make me another one that I can send it to Thailand and get these mass produced, and then we can start selling them.
Okay.
And then I was like, oh shit, I went from like learning how to fabricate to now manufacture to do bulk production and then selling. So and back then, this is funny, and the statute of limitation is now long gone since then. But
so here comes something. Pay attention, y'all. Pay attention.
Some good stuff. And like, this is one of the cool things. Like I think a lot of people will laugh at, because I feel like a lot of people who were in the military weren't, the best kids growing up. Some were. But like bending the rules. So internet forums were like the thing back then. And this is 2008, 2009. So that's how I made all of my money, is like sharing on these internet forums. And then it's like, well, shit, I need a website. Like Shopify and all that kind of stuff wasn't there back then. So I ended up finding a guy on a forum, and then he told me fireworks were illegal in California. Well,
I see where this is going.
it's illegal to ship fireworks. So we ended up working out a deal. I won't go in full details on that.
Statute of limitations gone.
But we would send him fireworks in the mail, so he would build my website.
So this was like the rated PG Silk Road of fireworks.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And then that
For
was
those
kind
of you who don't know what that is, Google it. And you'll learn some stuff. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how I got my first website built. And then it was like, I started learning all these pivotal moments of like, okay, here's how you build a business. Here's how you market it. Here's how you do all that. Then kind of 2008, 2009, I thought, I was on a high. We were, crushing it. We were doing these, we had people coming by the shop and dropping off their truck, handing writing a $10,000 check to hop it up. And I'm over here at like 18 years old. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Taxes, what's that? Like all of this kind of stuff. And then the financial crisis hit, housing market flopped, and it went from people coming and dropping off a truck to basically do whatever and just, hey, let me know the total, to, hey, I need my oil changed.
Yeah.
Hey, I need my suspension serviced. And I was just like...
Then you're trying to paying people for storage fees because they can't pay the bill from the project you were halfway through. Yeah, a lot of shops went through that.
Yeah, so that was a struggle. And back then I wasn't smart with my cash. I didn't know what to do with my cash or, inventory or anything like that. It was just kind of fucking go,
18 years old. Can you imagine? You can. But, for those who are listening, it goes out as fast as it comes in.
Yeah. Faster than it comes in.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't know what to do, and it got to the point where after about a year of just doing boring stuff to me, and not doing the fun big projects and actually pushing myself out of my comfort zone, I grew to basically hate doing that.
Yeah.
And I was just so burnt out, and I didn't communicate a lot with my family at that time, and it was just kind of a soul-searching moment. And it was just like, what would younger Jason me think of right now? And It's like, I'm not happy with where I'm at. I stopped racing motocross. I started, drag racing diesel trucks. It's cool. And then, but now I'm changing oil and suspension and doing maintenance stuff. And so I was like, you know what? Fuck it. And I just hopped in my shop truck at the time. Okay. Drove to the recruiter station.
So how old were you when you went to the recruiter?
So I was 20.
Okay. Still a very young man.
Walked into the recruiter station, just went to the very first dude. As soon as I opened up the door, walked up to him, said, hey, I want to join the Army. He said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be in the infantry. And he looked at me. He was like, why the fuck do you want to be in the infantry? And I was like, well, that's what all the cool guys do on the movies and TV. And he was just like, sit down. And he told me, you'll never meet another guy like me. I have a specialty job, but you do not want to be in the infantry. And I was like, no, I want to be in the infantry, and I'm going to be in the infantry. And he was just like, okay. Turns out
the recruiter clearly saw your level of intelligence, and he was like, hey, I think we have some other options for you. And you were like, nope, send me out.
Yeah. And even we did the little pre-test before they send you to MEPS to take the ASVAB and everything. And I was just like fucking off the whole entire time I was taking the pre-test. I was like, bro, I have to hit a fucking 33 to get into the infantry. That's all I need. I'm doing sub minimum.
What's your name and
yeah. Yeah.
It's more than that. It's more than that.
What's your name? And then you're good. No. And then, I just did bare minimum because I knew where I wanted to go, and that's what I wanted, and that was it. And it turns out his job was to make eyeglasses in the military.
The recruiter.
Yeah. So, and I've never heard of that.
So he wasn't full of shit when he said, you'll never meet somebody who does what I do here.
No, and it was funny enough. So he reached out and stayed in touch with me while I was in service.
Very cool.
Very nice guy. And fast forward to 2 years after I got out, I was actually at my sister's house for 4th of July. And I look 2 houses over in the driveway, and I'm like, man, that guy looks really fucking familiar. He's tall as shit. And I'm just sitting there thinking, so I go walk over there. It's my recruiter. Lives right around the corner from my sister. I was like, what the hell?
Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and then that's whenever I joined I went in, had to do a lot of paperwork. Growing up, with motocross and injuries and all that kind of stuff. Yep. The nickname for me in the recruiter station was Iron Man. And then so it took about 8 months, and then I shipped off to MEPS and then started the whole entire deal.
Wow. That alone, there's an episode. What an incredible story. That's a lot to accomplish. Coming from some of the same or similar industries, I'm in metal fab as well. I build motorcycles. that's a lot to have for me accomplished in my early 20s, let alone 14, 15, which is very admirable. Then to want to serve your country, but to the degree where you choose infantry, which is wild, especially because you're talking about the tests and you're like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the kind of bare minimum so I end up where I want to. That was probably the first time as a young adult you ever did the bare minimum because you were such a hyper performer up until that point.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but did you have military in your family?
No.
So you solely made the decision you want to serve your country. Wow. That's
yeah, and that was something like I still remember to the day. I walked into my parents before they renewed the store. You walked into the office. The very middle room was kind of the general manager's office, and then my mom's office was on the right. My dad's office was on the left. I walked in there. Hadn't seen them for a few days and called my mom into my dad's office, and they're just thinking, hey, we're just going to shoot the shit and all that kind of stuff. And I told them, like, hey, I joined the military. And, like, both their faces just, like, turned pale white.
You mean to tell me that you gave your folks, no preface?
No.
It was just, hey, by the way, I already did this?
Yeah.
Wow, your parents are saints.
Yeah, and, if they turned pale white, kind of took it in for a moment, some tears shed, all that kind of stuff. But they were just like,
proud, yeah.
We respect you.
That's awesome. Because they had that instilled. So is there any military, like grandparents or anything? I mean, obviously your parents had it very much instilled in them to appreciate that. You mentioned thanking people for their service, very much instilling in the kids, hey, this is why we have our freedoms. These are the people that fight for us. Where do you think that came from with your parents?
So my dad's dad was not a great guy. Okay. My mom's mom was not a great guy. Or great gal. My mom's dad and her stepmom, my grandma, like most amazing people in the world. Same thing with my dad's mom. Phenomenal.
A couple of saints and a couple of sinners there.
Yeah. So they did everything to the book, to the T, on raising them right. Great grandpa, like Civil War time frame, stuff like that. Okay. We had people who served, but nothing like connection or living connections to that. For a brief time, on my dad's side, my grandma was married to a guy who actually flew Hueys in Vietnam. So that was like the closest connection to that. But I think it was just the amount of hard work that they had put in, coming from absolutely nothing. I mean, fucking, they say it's not true. I give them shit all the time. Like my dad was a busboy at Jason's Deli. And I was like, oh yeah, that's how I got my name. But I mean, like he worked at Baskin Robbins, Jason's Deli. He was a lawnmower repair mechanic, then became a manager, and then like worked his way up. And same thing for my mom. I mean, they worked at a hardware store in Beaumont. That's kind of what got their start inside of hardware. Wow. So they're a true entrepreneur success story in that aspect of it. So without people serving our country and without this amazing country, none of that would be possible.
That's incredible. That's incredible. We could talk. I could sit here and talk to you for hours about metal fab, motocross, the things that you remind me of. A lot of really close friends that I had in high school that chose to join the military. I have a ton of military in my family directly, and my folks are like, nope, you're going to college. I didn't have that. Hey, I already did it, mom and dad, that you did.
Well, and so my parents, all they wanted me to do is college. Because they're like, hey, look, we've struggled and we fucking killed ourselves. And by that time, like me being in high school, they were making it, but they weren't like, oh, hey, I'm over here, like I have a ton of money or anything like that. They were still hustling every single day.
Yeah, 24/7 jobs.
And that's all that they wanted, me to go to college and have an easier life than they did. And I kind of looked at it like, man, I don't like that. And in school, middle school, I was labeled as dyslexic. I had ADHD. I mean, in fucking, sixth grade, I was labeled as all of this kind of stuff. They put me on a ton of medication. And then in seventh grade, they opened up an additional reading class that they put me in. There was like 7 other dudes, and they did it in the library closet.
Oh my God. So you spent quite a bit of time being officed in random small
cubicles. Fucking closets. I keep on coming out, but I'm still not. I'll save that.
Yeah, that's a whole different podcast.
Yeah. No, but and I actually tried to go to community college and they denied me.
Really?
Yeah. So, and that was whenever I had 2 businesses. I was like, all right, like my parents will not stop harping me, specifically my mom, if she hears this podcast. And I went in there and they were just like, no.
Wow.
Which
do you feel like that affected your decision to go into the military, or do you feel like that was just kind of a side note? You would have done that and still ended up in the military?
No, at that point, like I had a falling out in high school with the way that the teachers and the staff kind of handled the stuff. And I mean, they would have my mom come in all the time and talk about, oh, he's got this learning disability and this learning disability. And it was all in the classes that were boring as shit to me. You take welding, you take like shop class, you take drafting, and I'm fucking an A+ student. I love the shit. I lived and breathed it. And like, that's what was for me. And it's not a learning disability. It's just learning how to teach someone who has a certain passion and a care and a learning style and doing it correctly. So I hate the way the school system works, to where it's just like you're by yourself. This is an ABCD test. That's it, period. It's like, it's not like that in the real world. And not every single person learns that way. So at that point, I had already had a hate built up for the school system. So whenever they denied me, I was just like, okay, cool. I'll just keep on doing my shit.
What a missed opportunity for those educators, because clearly you didn't have a hate for authority, which is a lot of times what you find in a situation like that. Yep. Because you chose to go in to the military where it's very authoritative and guiding. So that's incredible that you ended up with that mindset, even though some of the leaders and educators in your life had massively failed you.
And my favorite part of that whole entire story of like getting denied community college is in 2019. I went and spoke at that college.
Nice. What a 360.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
And that was the intro of the speech.
Yeah. Hey, let me, was there still some of these same administration where everyone would be like, oh, they're Professor so-and-so, remember me?
I don't remember who the hell they were. As soon as they were like,
Good
sorry, I'm like, cool.
I'd have been like, I remember you right there, third row.
I think, honestly, like I was more happy whenever I got denied because I didn't have to fucking go to college.
There you go.
I was like, all right,
Fair enough. So let me ask you this. I want to talk a little bit more about your time in the military, your career in the military. What experiences or lessons would you say stand out the most to you?
Being voluntold. So, and this will make sense. So I joined the infantry. It's all I wanted to do. Let's go serve the country. Let's do our part, but let's do it in like the biggest scale you can. And that was, kicking in doors and, being face to face with people, not being a paper pusher, not being supply. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Everyone has their own job, but if I'm going to do it, like, let's fucking do it and roll.
Yeah.
So join the infantry. At the end of basic training in AIT, you're inside of what they call a quad inside of your company. And we're all standing in formation. At that time, I was 4th squad. I'm in 4th platoon. 3rd squad, 4th platoon, due to my last name. And we're all in formation. They're calling off duty stations. And like most of all of our guys are either going like 25th ID or 101st. And we know both of them, like, hey, they got a lot of rotations. They've been deploying a lot. So we're all like, fuck yeah. We're going to go get some like right after this. Then they get to me, and it was Drill Sergeant Rutherford. And he looked down at the piece of paper. He looked up at me, looked down at the piece of paper, looked back up at me. And I'm like thinking in my head, like, what the hell? Like, he's just been ripping everyone's names off. And he was like, Murph, why the fuck would you join the old guard? I'm just like, Drill Sergeant, I don't know what the old guard is. And he was like, you're going to stand there and never fucking deploy. And then he started reading off everyone else's names. And I was just like, my heart sunk. Like, just like my parents, I turned pale white. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? Turns out the old guard is a very honored specialty unit. I'm unbelievably grateful that I got to serve there. It is not what I wanted to do directly out of basic training or anything like that. And I had no idea about the old guard because so whenever you first like get to MEPS and then you get sent to your duty station where you're going to go through basic training in the infantry, that's in Fort Benning, Georgia, there's 2 weeks of reception to where it's like you just get like cattle herded around, you get shots, you get handed all your uniforms, all your paperwork, everything like that. And there was one day to where we're in an auditorium and they said, hey, if you're 6 foot or taller, go in this room. If not, stay here. And then the drill sergeants just fucked with us that whole entire time. That was the old guard briefing because you're supposed to be 6 foot or taller to be in the old guard.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I'm 5'9", so I was like,
no, you're not. No, you're close to 6 foot. You're pushing it.
yeah, I wish. No, so like I had no idea it existed. So I spent a lot of time hitting up all of our leadership there at basic training and do a lot of fucking push-ups trying to get out. Like, I don't want to go here. This isn't what I want to do. And I remember specifically our first sergeant had me in the front leaning rest doing a lot of push-ups. And he told me, he was like, look, it's going to fucking suck. I know it's not what you want to do, but whenever you get out, you will be so grateful that you served there. And I remember that to this day, and I still believe that to this day, like unbelievably grateful. So yeah, I finished up that, went straight to Washington, D.C., there at Arlington National Cemetery. And then I got reminded that also that it's a volunteer-only unit that I was voluntold to go to, so to bring that back around. And
real quick, for those of us that are listening who aren't veterans, voluntold, tell me what that means to you real quick.
So
that's an awesome term. It's a really cool term.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of times, like, everybody always asks for volunteers.
Right.
And a lot of times what will end up happening if you're going in the military, this is a pro tip, especially basic training, volunteer for stuff. There is a higher chance that you're not going to have to do the bullshit details than if you were to not volunteer, because the people who raise their hands, they'll say, put them down, and then you'll be voluntold because you didn't raise your hand.
Yeah.
So,
so to be told to volunteer, basically.
Yeah.
Forced into selective options.
Yeah, because a lot of times it'll be like, hey, we need 10 volunteers for this. It'll be 30 guys, like 2 people raise their hands. They're like, hey, put your hands, y'all get out of the way. All y'all are all fucked
everybody
now.
who didn't, let's scrub the deck. Let's do it.
So it went from 10 to 28. Now everyone's doing it.
Awesome.
So yeah, I got there to the unit and thought I was, done. I'm like, dude, I finished basic training, AIT. I'm an infantry guy. I'm ready to fucking roll. And they say, okay, hey, you have 5 weeks of training. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, I just finished all my training. They're like, no, you have to go through regimental and in processing. And so what that is you now get there and they basically tell you, hey, everything you forgot about drill and ceremony and everything along those lines inside of the military, like, forget. We're the old guard. We do stuff a certain way. Okay. And then so you start on week 0. And then it goes up to week 4 and you learn everything from the old guard. And that could be like the way you stand at the position of attention, parade rest, learning ceremonial composure, keeping your face straight whenever you have a family who has an active duty KIA that's getting handed a flag that's just falling apart in front of you, and keeping that ceremonial composure.
Wow.
And it's learning how, hey, you know how you thought your class A's looked perfect whenever you got out of basic training? Like, forget all of that. Here's a set of wool uniforms that you're going to be wearing all the fucking time. Here's how to sew it. Here's how to steam press it. Here's how to get all the lint removed. Here's how to starch it. Here's how to fucking everything.
Did you have any idea about?
No clue.
No?
I did a quick Google search of the old guard and I was like, okay, cool. They look sharp. And then fucking went on my way.
Wow. So you didn't realize the different degree of discipline and...
No.
Wow.
No. And so we get through that, and basically, like, your last week of that training is you do what they call a standing proficiency for, I believe it's either 45 minutes or 60 minutes, to where you go from standing at the position of attention to parade rest, and then sometimes you do present arms, and you have to maintain perfect ceremonial composure. Your uniform has to be within a 64th of an inch.
Wow.
Of, like, perfection, and it's just they make you perfect to where you are perfectly disciplined. And then going to from that, I got assigned to hotel company, and then going to hotel company, they're like, hey, yeah, you guys are about to deploy to the Horn of Africa. And I was like, well, I mean, it's not the deployment that I wanted, but it's a deployment. Cool. And then we get down there, and it was like a week or 2 after I got to hotel company. The sergeant major of the Army at the time made us a non-deployable unit for Obama's second inauguration. So I was like, awesome. Everything's coming true that he said will come true.
Yeah. Wow. So that's incredible. And the way that lined up is interesting. What lesson do you feel like you took from that?
So there's a saying that anyone in the military probably has had people in the military have always heard, like, adapt and overcome. Mm-hmm. If you're in the military, be fucking ready. That, and to, like, also take a moment and, like, respect and honor what you're doing. Because for a lot, I mean, even a lot of times I was there in the old guard, I took it for granted. So looking back at it now, like I wish I would have done things a little bit different, but I'm unbelievably grateful that I was able to serve there and do what I did.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's very compelling. So I want to talk a little bit about your transition to civilian life. One of Mission Roll Call's substantial focuses is offering resources and support for those who are about to or have just transitioned from the military to civilian life. So we know that it can be challenging. We've heard stories on both sides of the spectrum. What were some of the biggest obstacles that you faced during your transition period from military to civilian life?
Which, first off, like, kudos to y'all for doing that. Like, that's unbelievably grateful. There needs to be more people like that, including our own government, helping people transition from that. That's something that gets swept underneath the rug. Going back to my transitioning, I didn't want to get out whenever I got out. So it was kind of abrupt stoply. I ended up destroying most of my left ankle, getting bounced around from doctor to doctor to doctor, and then having a non-successful surgery at Walter Reed, and got kind of left up with the options of I could get another surgery by the doctor who works next door to the doctor who didn't perform the surgery correct, and they were going to do like this crazy elaborate surgery that I'd be non-weight bearing for a year. Wow. And the total recovery time would have been about 18 to 20 months, or I could get medically discharged. So, and I remember like sitting down in ceremonial hall. So like with the old guard, like all that we do there is for the company that I was in, we would do funerals 1 week, ceremonies 1 week, tactical training the next week. And then we would have an off week, which normally meant we were doing funerals and ceremonies. So, they were doing prep for a ceremony in C Hall is what we called it, ceremonial hall there on Fort Myer. And I went and sat down with my squad leader at the time and just like broke down in tears. Like fucking just fell apart because everything that I wanted to do that I'd still not accomplished, because going straight in, as soon as I got assigned to a hotel company, I walked in, I was the dumbass fucking private that walked straight up to his platoon sergeant and was like, hey, all I want to do is go to Ranger school. And he's like, yeah, start pushing. He's like, you're going to need to get really fucking good at this if you want to go there. And he's like, if you want to go places like it, he was very good in the fact of like, while he's physically correcting me, telling me what I needed to do, which was basically be a PT stud. So I fell in love with working out there. And then I got to go to all these schools, but I never got to finish checking off certain things that I wanted to do while I was in. So I had that moment to where I just broke down with Staff Sergeant Nicholson. And because, I mean, at that point, my career, my goals, everything was washed. As soon as they realized that, hey, he needs surgery. Hey, this surgery wasn't well. I was removed from my company. I was removed with the guys that I was serving with. I got sent to headquarters company into operations. And it was just a total like life change that I was not ready for.
So this was an unexpected transition. So when you joined the military, and after your 3.5 years in the military until you were injured, you expected to be career military for...
I don't know about like career for 20 years, but I definitely didn't want to stop because the old guard wasn't what I wanted.
You wanted more out of what you signed up for initially.
Yeah, I wanted to go to a line unit.
Okay.
So in the old guard's a specialty unit that doesn't, their main mission isn't kicking indoors. So yeah, I was faced with that. Thankfully, a lot of the guys that were in operations with me were either transitioning to another unit or getting medically discharged. So I had a lot of guys that I could kind of like counter back and forth with. I learned a lot more from the operational level on how everything functioned inside of the military that you don't really see that whenever you're at a team or a squad level. On like, every morning we would do reconnaissance of ceremonies and all the funerals that are happening and everything else that's going on in the military district of Washington. And then as a corporal, I'm sending out an email to, 3- and 4-star generals and all this kind of stuff. So I'm like learning all these life skills that I'm not realizing that I'm learning at the time. And then whenever it came to, hey, we got all the medical documents done and it's time for me to transition and medically discharge, and do that, it was 7 days.
7 days from when you found out till you were done?
No, it was a 7-day course.
Oh, okay.
So, it takes 13 weeks if you join the infantry.
Okay.
From basic training to AIT till you're at your unit to be an infantryman. 7 days. And technically it's 5 of like actual like classes and stuff to unalter what you would learn.
Wow.
What took 13 weeks to teach you, and then however many years you spent perfecting your craft. I mean, we had a fucking longer train up for our expert infantry badge.
Wow. That's
we spent 3 weeks in the fucking field doing that, and then you want to completely mind wash me to get out and become a civilian again and work in the civilian workforce, and you give me 5-7 days. That was kind of an eye-opener. At that point, just with the attitude and mentality that I had, I already knew what I wanted to do whenever I got out, or at least I thought I knew what I wanted to do. But I looked at that as kind of just like, okay, cool. Here's some little bonus points, helps. I already know what I'm going to do. I already have my mindset. Like, I don't need this shit. So I'm the definition of what you should not do whenever you're going through that transitioning program. Cause even whenever it came to like, we had to have a job acceptance letter. That was one of like the final things that we did for me, and I forged it.
Wow.
Like I was just like, I don't need
you're like,
this
I
shit.
don't need this.
Yeah. I was like, I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Here's
And if
your
it doesn't
paper.
work out,
Yeah.
cool. I'll fucking do something else.
Wow.
So there was a lot of classes that were very beneficial, like financial classes, job resume classes, things like that. But I mean, for these guys who went in at 18 directly out of high school, or even some while they were still in high school, and then, they spend 20 years or even 10 years into it and then get forced out into the civilian world, like that is not what is needed. Like there needs to be so much more for that. And there's ample amount of time to be able to do that while you're still in. But yeah, no, I pretty much, that was kind of one of the other things, like with ASFAB or anything else. It was just like, fuck it, I'm going to do bare minimum. Forward to the job acceptance letter, because I was like, I already know I'm going to go to college. I'm going to use the GI Bill. I'm going to go down this route. And at that time, I had a guy that I had served with, and we had like thrown around the idea of using our GI Bill to become commercial pilots.
Okay.
So and we found a place in Waco, Texas. And he ended up going down a different route like a month before I got out. And it was like, oh, fuck, do I still want to do this? And I was like, sure. Why not? Like, pilots make decent amount of living, so I could do this and then use that to fund any other crazy adventures that I wanted to do. I still had the fireworks stand at that time.
You still have the fireworks stand?
Yeah. Yeah. Still had that going. My sister was helping me keep that running. So ended up... just kind of skating through the whole entire transitioning process, and then went back to Houston, stayed at my parents' house for like a week and a half until it was time to go to college.
Let me ask you this. So do you feel like your entrepreneurial drive from having already been a business owner previous to military and your parents, do you feel like it would have been different for you to transition if you didn't already have that ingrained in you?
Yes.
So you feel, I mean, tell me about, imagine that you didn't have that drive. Would you have felt confident in what you were doing with what you're provided, or would you have felt somewhat lost? And I mean, tell me about that.
More lost. But, and the reason why I say that is like, I had, most of the stuff that they were giving us, they'd taken us to all these classes and everything, like I've already experienced. Like I knew what it was like sitting in whenever somebody's trying to get a job and going through the hiring process. Like I learned all of this kind of stuff growing up in my family's hardware store. And then like I had multiple jobs, even down to like working at a Honda dealership. I went and worked there just so I could have some extra free cash right before I went off to the military. I had a few months of doing that. So I got to see all these different aspects and work all these different jobs and positions and learn all these skill sets before I went to the military. So not having that and that only being your like sole specific thing, then yeah, I would have been lost.
So you had a significant amount of, obviously, drive, but you knew what you wanted to do all the way up until you went into and were out of the military. You knew what you wanted to do. But let me ask you this. That is more about from what I understand, that was more about your family. I mean, that was instilled in you. You had those ideas. What did the Army actually do that contributed to your success after your transition?
Sharpen those skills. So, and this was one of the things like with the old guard that was, I didn't appreciate until I got out, is the amount of discipline and the attention to detail on every single little thing. and that's transitioned over into business and everyday life for me. And it's like I started acquiring all these different skill sets, but they were just like half-ass learned skill sets, or like some of them were decent, some of them weren't. And it was just like, okay, and the level that we operated at the Old Guard was based solely off the fact of whenever you see us in Arlington National Cemetery, that is the last form of military service that a lot of these families see as we put their deceased loved ones in the ground.
Wow.
So it's a lot to weigh on you. And so that's how we tried to live our lives every single day there, is like holding those standards right there. And I mean, it's still to this day, inside my home office, I have a canvas painting of Arlington inside of there. And it's just that daily reminder of like, hey, this is why I do this. This is why I stay disciplined. This is why I am the way that I am.
That's an incredible thing to have ingrained in you. That's excellent. So speaking of that, and I want to talk about your business, Grill Your Ass Off, which I'm a fan of. A lot of us at Mission Roll Car are a fan of. But first, I kind of want to talk a little bit more about your perspective as a veteran business owner. How do you feel your military background has influenced your approach to not just your business, but to leadership in your company? Because now, you know, the fireworks stand, I know you worked with family, you had sister, but now you have multiple employees.
Yep.
You have multiple business relationships. How do you feel like your experience in the Army affected you as a leader in a civilian business?
Greatly. As long as you look at it from that aspect, like you learn from your failures. That's one thing I always try and remind people. You know, you can have a failure, a bad day, and if you let it be that, then it's going to be that. Or you could stop and learn from it. So a lot of the things that I learned that I feel like helped me today to be a better leader is from the shitty leaders that I had inside the military. And then, but along with that, the amazing leaders I had.
I was going to say also some of the amazing people that you mentioned.
Yeah, so some of the most amazing leaders I've ever met, thankfully I served under, and vice versa. I've had some shitty leaders. I mean, I got to chapter out my very first team leader whenever I became team leader. And that was absolutely amazing. I feel sorry for the guy, but I mean, whenever you're a shitbag, you're a shitbag. But with that, it's even down to counseling someone. We had counseling statements inside the military, and that's just something as minimal as that. Like, you're getting set up to where now you're starting to learn things in the HR aspect and on the management level. So whenever you do start a business in the state of Texas and you have to deal with Texas Workforce Commission and everything like that, it's like there's these little things that happen that all come together to where it's like, oh, wow, like this is actually shaping me in so many different aspects, but people don't look at it like that. A lot of people that I talk to, they're like, oh, well, I was in the infantry too. That's all I know how to do. And it's like, so you know how to do everything. Like, you're a grunt, you're a dumb grunt, but you know how to do everything. So I mean, that's really it. It's just like looking at it, glass half full, an aspect of that. But I mean, it's just all the different styles of leadership that you learn, and you get to see a whole entire company of guys managed, and you can pull away from all. There's still things that I see today in business that I'll hit a different milestone or I'll hit a different roadblock, and I'm like, fuck, in our team room, we had this shit set up like this for this same reason. Why the fuck am I not doing this right now? And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's implement this in the business and see what happens. And so it's like a lot of times it's falling back to the things that I was trained on in the military. So that's been an unbelievably help for me in the just everyday life, but also in business as a leader.
Well said. So let's go all the way back, and then I'm going to fast forward because I want to talk about Grill Your Ass Off. And this is interesting to me. So, young kid, motocross, quads, mechanical engineering, basically, fabrication, fireworks stand, diesel shop, corporate Honda shop. How in the hell did that lead to boutique barbecue? Tell me about what inspired you to start Grill Your Ass Off, and was there a specific moment or experience that sparked that idea for you?
So right before I left for the military, and this is like one of the cool things with the longer form podcast, that I don't really get to go into like full details of how all of this kind of just morphs together. At the hardware store, they started doing a cook-off every year, and it was called Grill Your Ace Off. And me and
was it an Ace Hardware?
Yeah,
it was an Ace.
Yeah, it's Ace Hardware
in
Houston. And they did that cook-off, and it was to raise money for Children's Miracle Network.
Very cool.
That was another aspect that I'm unbelievably grateful for my family and, giving back, and which is why Grill Your Ass Off gives back a portion of everything we sell today. But I mean, Sonny, Jordan, Logan, Kyle, and myself did a cook-off team, and we'd started winning some, like People's Choice, all that kind of stuff there. It wasn't rigged. But we just did it as fun. And then the year that I left, it was super cool. I was in the military. They actually had a photo, like one of my service photos on the table there in the cook-off. So they kept everything going. And then, fast forward to me getting out, I'm transitioning out with a mindset of I'm going to go be a commercial pilot. And the kind of goal was I'm going to finish all of my commercial stuff fixed wing, then transfer over to rotor, because it's kind of like a on-ramp for rotor. You can do fixed wing first and then rotor, but if you do rotor first, not a lot of it transfers over to fixed wing. So it's cool, I'll use my GI Bill for this. I don't know why I thought going to college with a GI Bill and flying would be any different than a regular college, but it was just right back to schoolwork and all that kind of stuff. So really didn't like the schoolwork aspect of it. And then flying, I quickly realized if me and you were up in a plane, we'd have fun. As soon as you start flying a school bus in the sky, it's not fun.
Quite a bit more responsibility tacked onto the fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that kind of helped me look at things at a different level is we had a townhouse in Arlington or in Alexandria, just outside of Arlington National Cemetery. And my roommate at the time, Mateo, he used to always, we were both really big into working out. So he would buy all the individual ingredients that would say be in a pre-workout. And we would figure out okay, hey, this does this to the body. This does this. Let's add this much. And our fucking kitchen was just like a meth lab. It looked like half the time.
But it wasn't.
Yes,
it wasn't.
It was not.
Unrelated.
And then as well, I started looking at everything on a micro level like that. Never thought I would really transition to food a whole lot. And then we would always do squad cookouts every weekend. So, fast forward to me going to college, and I'm like, man, I really don't like this stuff. I started racing motocross again. So I'd go into Houston, crash at my parents' place, do a motocross race, go back to Waco, and fly planes. I met one of my dad's friends, who was a sheriff's officer at the time, that had his own couple bottles of seasonings as a little side hustle. Talked to him in it, figured out where he was getting it made, how to do all that kind of stuff. I was like, man, that'd be pretty cool to do something I don't know what I would do, what I would call it. And the initial concept and idea was actually calling it Grill Your Ace Off, and then working with Ace Hardware Corporate to be able to turn around and help sell them, and then doing a portion back to Children's Miracle Network. Just
Very cool.
This is very cool concept. It's already proven in a cook-off aspect. Let's see what they would like. Ace Corporate just shot it down. And I was like, okay, cool. So didn't really do anything with it. That's
good confirmation for a small business owner, though, to realize why you don't want to be super uber mega corporate.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
Oh, 100%. And it was kind of eye-opening for me, because so much of what I had done up to that point was just 1,000 miles an hour, go, but on a smaller level, not on a corporate level.
Corporate level is what? Hurry up and wait, right?
That's the definition of the military. So I got to learn that aspect from the military, thankfully.
You were prepared.
And so I ended up just kind of sitting on it, developed some of the seasonings, and started getting good flavor profiles down. But I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And then I came back to my parents one weekend for a motocross race, and my dad had brought up to me, he was like, hey, why don't you call it Grill Your Ass Off? And I was like, man, I don't know, it's a funny name, but no stores would ever carry that. And so I didn't do anything with it. And I ended up getting hammered one night, paying a kid $15 on Fiverr to draw me a donkey on a grill crying.
Wait a minute. Hang on. Okay. So, and we'll put a link to Jason's amazing products and some about his business, but
I can send you the photo.
Describe the logo, and then tell me where you came up with that idea of say it again. It was
a donkey sitting on a grill crying. And I was just like, okay, cool. If I did something with Grill Your Ass Off, how could I get businesses to sell it? Because I'm all about working around stuff so we can still have fun. And it's like, if I did it, I would want it to be humorous, because humor is what got us through our dark times of military service. Humor's the best fucking drug in the world. So it's like, I wanted it to be humorous, and I love the fact it's surrounded by food, because food brings everyone together. So I was like, cool, I have these two amazing things. Like, how do I morph it? And I was just like, why not a donkey, because it's ass, right, sitting on a grill with its ass like fucking burning. And crying. And so send it off. This dude sends back this fucking horrible pencil sketch of a fucking donkey, like with like oversized tears coming off, like a caricature. Like, I'm just like, bro, this is garbage.
Didn't
but there's something here.
Worth, yeah.
Yeah. That's and then I learned $5's not $5 to do it anymore. So I looked at that and I was like, dude, this is great. I took that concept and then I took it to a different artist on Fiverr, had a better update, and then went to a different artist on Fiverr and like landed the original logo that we had for the company. And I was like, I'm going to fucking do this. So the next aspect was it like, okay, cool. Like, what am I going to do? And I was like, all right, well, there's like 4 main meat products that I want to do. We have beef, chicken, pork, and like seafood. So I was like, cool, we'll do one for each. Got the blends down, and then for the steak seasoning for beef, it was the heaviest granules that we had put in all the seasoning. So I was like, okay, cool. I will call this Ma Deuce, which is one of the largest caliber weapon systems that we use, M2A1 Browning. And I was like, all right, I'll just name all the other seasonings, nomenclatures of different firearms and stuff like that. And I was just like, cool. No, that can get pretty boring. Like, other people have done similar stuff to that. I was like, let me be different. So what I did is I started contacting all of the guys that I served with. And it's like, what would you want in this company? Like, what do you think would be cool? And Abraham, I remember specifically talking to him. We were just kind of bouncing around ideas back and forth. And he was like, well, if you got a pork seasoning, that's fucking easy. You call it Infidel. And I was just like, okay. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then like, we have chicken seasoning, and the first thing that pops in my head is white phosphorus, which we use for smoke grenade. You can also use it to destroy high value equipment. Burns over 5,000 degrees. And then back in Nam, they would actually use it similar to napalm. So I was like, cool, we'll call it Willie Pete. Willie Pete's the nickname. It sounds a lot better than white phosphorus.
Yeah, I don't know if people would want to be eating white phosphorus chicken.
And then like the last one was the Cajun seasoning. That was the original 4. And the Cajun seasoning, I had no idea what I wanted to call it. I just knew that I couldn't fuck up being from Beaumont in southern Texas and being right next to Louisiana. I was like, bro, like, I got to knock this one out of the park. So I was looking at it and I was like, man, this has the least amount of ingredients out of all these 4, but I feel like it packs some of the best flavor out of them. And I was like, it reminds me of a Claymore. It's a small mine with huge effect to it. So I was like, cool, Claymore Cajun seasoning. And that was the original 4.
Nice. It's really cool to hear standout terms from your service that made it all the way through to your business. You know, we speak with a lot of veterans who have great experiences. We speak with veterans who have very poor experiences, but it's really cool to find your inspiration from your service that translates to your now successful business. So let me ask you this, because you're a very unique business owner in your experience with the military, because you knew what you wanted to do. You knew where you were coming from. You knew where you wanted to go. However, if you didn't necessarily have that, and I know you can't be another person, but what do you think unique challenges exist that would affect someone who is just about to transition from the military that wants to start a small business?
And this is me coming from being a civilian business owner before being a veteran business owner. You have so much available to you that I think a lot of us as veterans, we tend to turn off a lot of times. And we tend to, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Whenever I was a civilian business owner, like, it's fucking cutthroat. No one wants to fucking help you. No one wants to talk to you because you're a potential threat to their business. And it's like, I never had, whenever I was a civilian business owner before military, I don't even like using civilian business owner terms. It just sounds weird. But like, I didn't have a lot of groups. It was all people that I built through my network of just nonstop talking to people and trying to find the next best thing. But as a veteran, like, we have so many fucking groups. We have Facebook groups. We have groups that meet up. You have all these different veteran business resources that will literally teach you so much shit. And God, I wish I would have been not a hard ass. Like, I couldn't tell you how many more thousands of dollars I could still have in my pocket if I took some of those classes. Or just like, I mean, there's even free classes on learning about taxes. As boring as that is, if you're going to start a business,
you need to
learn about fucking taxes.
Because the IRS is going to get their money.
Yeah. So it's not what the resources like are going to be hard, or certain challenges that you're going to face. It's just making sure that you're actually utilizing what is available to you.
Using the network and using the resources, and not putting your head down and trying to just be the sole person responsible for everything, which a very proud veteran community often does.
Yeah. And no, I'm fucking prime example. I put my head down all the time, and I'm just like, watch out, I'm going to do this shit. But you got to stop and think, like, we didn't do anything in the military alone. Like, Army's odds are 3-1. Like, if we're going to go into battle, we better be 3-1. We're going to fuck them up and mop the floor. Like, you need to do the same thing in business. Like, I would not be where I'm at with Grill Your Ass Off or anything that I've done without an amazing team. And the cool thing about being a veteran, especially wanting to get out and become a business owner, is like, that team is there. There's teams everywhere. You just have to get off your ass and find it.
That's excellent. And so how has the veteran community supported Grill Your Ass Off and your journey as an entrepreneur?
It's been amazing, like more than I could ever ask for. For instance, like, one of my amazing, like, best friends and entrepreneurial, like, business owner friends, Sean Matson, owns a company called Cardomax, and Matt Bach, very successful. He had a different company before that, and he just slid in my DMs one day on Instagram and hit me up, and he was like, hey, do you want to send, I think back then it was like 300. He was like, I'll send you 300 samples. You send me 300 samples, and we'll put it in each other's orders and let our customers try it. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, yeah, fuck it. Why not? So it could be little things like that, and I mean, that turned into developing. We did that for, like 2 months. And then all of a sudden I get a phone call, from Scott Davidson with Veteran, Business Group. And he does amazing events called Burbiz all over the country. And then the next thing you know, I'm in Washington, D.C. at the Redskins football stadium doing this huge event for veterans. And it's like, it just opens up the door so drastically to you. And one of the good things with the Veteran Business Group is like, they help align you with everything, but if you're off the line and you become a shitbag, you'll be known that you're a shitbag. And whenever you start falling off, and so much so to say, like, and a lot of people are afraid to talk to other business owners in the same category. Just this past week, I was with Charlinda from Mutt Sauce. She makes a barbecue sauce. We are direct competitors, but there's so much capital in the world, and we help each other all the time. And she got invited to be a key panel speaker at a CPG event here in Austin.
Very cool.
And I went down for that, and I met so many amazing resources that I'm going to be blowing their phones up for God knows how long. And it's all because I have an amazing friend who's an Air Force veteran that also has a barbecue seasoning company.
So stepping back into utilizing that network, to not a combination of not being too proud to ask for it if you might need some help or assistance or you want a network, and also for the veterans who are in a position where they might be able to help others to reach out like he did with you and said, hey, let's do this trade, let's cross market.
100%. And like, if you look at it at this perspective, and I think this goes to say with a lot of people, just because I've been in that dark side. I've been to where I've been in that dark place, drinking yourself to sleep every single night and not good mental states. A lot of times what you need is in the thing that you're not doing, that you're putting off and you're putting away and putting away.
Say that again. Say that exact same thing again. What you need.
What you need is what you're not doing.
Wow.
So it's like, it could be, as a business owner, you have someone who needs to get, let go inside of the company as being a cancer, but they were your first employee or they've done something significant for you, but now your whole entire team is affecting it and you just keep on putting it off. And then all of a sudden you finally let them go and everyone is happy and joyful and grateful. And then now your business is freaking booming and hitting new milestones because you finally did what you're afraid of. And I think a lot of veterans who end up in that deep, dark place, they're putting off saying, I need help.
Wow.
And I think if you stop putting it off and then just own up and say, I need help, you will find that help and you will be so much better and you will grow to new heights that you never knew that you could achieve.
And oftentimes, I mean, that's so impactful. And oftentimes people say it's easier said than done. But I mean, what a shining example you are to having had done that and then have to reach this level of success. So going from there, Joe is about to become a civilian. He's transitioning from military advice. He thinks he wants to start a small business. What advice would you give him?
Patience. You know, we're go. And it's going to feel a lot like hurry up and wait, like we dealt with in the military. But patience is everything with business, because you could be one day away from making an amazing decision or one day away from making a horrible decision. Nothing that is worth having is going to come fast. And so many people need to realize that with business. You know, they jump into business and they're like, okay, cool. You know, I've been doing this shit for 3 months and I still haven't hit $100,000 or $1 million in sales. You know, I'm not making any money, so I'm just going to quit doing this. This wasn't for me. Like, fucking A. If, like, I could go back and tell my younger self, just be fucking patient. Like, it would be amazing. I mean, with Grill Your Ass Off, my first full year of doing business, I think we did $33,000 in sales. And I was just like, okay, how am I supposed to make a living? Thankfully, at one point, and this is like another thing that not a lot of people get to see or hear about, like, I went back to college online so I could get money from the GI Bill to help pay rent. Because I knew, I was like, I'm going to fucking make this work, period. I dropped out of college to make Grill Your Ass Off work. And I gave myself no other option but to do that. And then whenever you have nothing, you have everything. Wow. So $33,000 in your first year of, I'm sure, busting your ass 60 plus hours a week and eating, living, sleeping, breathing the product to now. And I won't give out his personal financial information, but well into the 7 figures in success of your business. Yeah, which less than 2% of businesses make it into the 7 figures a year in revenue.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's still humble times. I remember like going to the fucking hardware store and whenever I used to make sample packs, so samples is one of the things that helped me get out, is I would give everyone a sample. Like, didn't matter, for free. Here you go. I had 1 gallon paint buckets that I would fill up with the different seasonings, and I had a 2 tablespoon coffee scoop, and I would use that to fill like little dime bags and then put a fucking thermal sticker on it.
Dime bags of barbecue spice.
That was the start. It was just like, let me fucking hustle. And I was doing it in my apartment kitchen. So very humble beginnings, and it's absolutely amazing like where we're at now and the team that we've been able to build and continue to build. That's
incredible. So let's plug your business a little bit. First of all, where can we get your products?
GrillYourAssOff.com. If you want to go online, if you want to go in store, there is a store locator on the website. Cool. And we are in all 50 states.
Oh, excellent. GrillYourAssOff.com. So let me ask you this also. What's next for Grill Your Ass Off?
So we just launched 3 new products. We did a Bloody Mary mix, which is just a spice, so you can add it to anything. We did a chili. A lot of people have been asking us for chili, and then to go along with our gourmet whiskey smoked sea salt, we just started doing smoked sugar.
Wait, gourmet whiskey smoked sea salt?
Yeah, so we actually take all natural sea salt, and we actually smoke it with whisk barrel wood that's imported from Tennessee. And then we decided to kick it up just because, I mean, I love me a good old fashioned or a cocktail. So it's like, okay, cool. Like, why don't we do sugar? Like, have you ever had simple syrup made with whiskey smoked sugar?
I have not.
It'll change your
I'm going
life.
to now.
I
Is
will
that in the
fix
samples?
that.
Did we get some of that? I got to try that.
So obviously, like, continuing to broaden the line, it started off with just seasonings, but I mean, we do seasoning sauces, beef jerky, pickles, olives. We got glazes, we got salsas, we got hot sauce. We have dips, beer salts. We're starting to get more into utensils, different apparel, all sorts of stuff. Is like, I just love being able to continue to grow and not be, managed or held down by just, we're a seasoning company, period. It's very similar to like an artist making music. Like, I just want to be able to go and do whatever I want to. And if I like it, let's roll with it. And then the next biggest step for us is the continuous retail growth.
So that's I mean, that's incredible. I didn't realize your product line was that vast. Which congratulations.
Thank
I mean,
you.
it's not easy to go in and start doing something that's very simple in a market that's flooded with those type of things and be so successful that now you're into apparel and utensils and things like that. That's
That is
incredible.
one thing that I want to say to like a lot of the veterans who are listening, who are thinking about getting into business. Just because a certain market is flooded doesn't mean it can't be broken into. I mean, look at how many seasonings have you seen that are out there? Everyone and their mother has a seasoning, but also how many podcasts are out here? Yeah. So, I mean, y'all are a shining example. Like, things are doable. You just have to be creative and you have to have the grit and the drive to be able to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's incredible. So let me ask you this. What message would you like to share with other veterans who might be struggling with their transition to civilian life, who want to reach the level of success that you have? Because, I mean, granted, I absolutely appreciate patience because I'm an impatient person. And as an adult who gets older every day, I've had to learn a lot of things, and patience is a substantial portion of that. However, imagine you as a veteran who is transitioning right now. What would you like to share with that veteran who might be struggling with that transition to civilian life?
Remember that you were the one that had the balls to put up your hand and swear an oath to join the military and to serve our country. You are the shining light and a leading example of what most people need on a daily basis and allow people to have the freedom that they have. So whenever you hit that lonely spot and wall, you need to remember that you're the badass motherfucker that joined and served, and this is just a minor setback for a major comeback. It's just a transitioning period. You'll have highs and lows just like we did in service, even if it's down to taking a day meal by meal, because there were some days that whenever I served, it was like, dude, if I just make it to fucking lunch, I'll be able to make it through this day. From that to making sure that this isn't going to be your last chapter. Every single chapter is going to get bigger and better. And if you knew what the ending was going to be, you wouldn't be doing it.
Wow, making sure this is not your last chapter.
If you knew what the last chapter was, you wouldn't be doing it. You wouldn't be having fun with it. You are currently going through the roughest and the hardest point of your time, and that is going to be the greatest chapter of your story.
Well said. Well said. I think that's a great note to end on. I absolutely want to thank everybody who tunes into The Lasting Mission and supports Mission Roll Call. Jason Murff, grillyourassoff.com. Check out his amazing products and apparel and utensils. Thank you so much. And for y'all, run that back. Listen to that last part again. That is incredible. If we can all focus on that, if our armed services, if our people in the military can focus in their transition on the last thing that Jason said and understand that it doesn't need to be your last chapter, that's a large portion of what Mission Roll Call is all about. Thank you for being here, Jason. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you, and I'm super excited to check out the sample pack you brought us.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an honor.
Thanks, brother.